We're talking about a game changer. Game changer that's going to be a very eco-friendly combustion engine. Its fuel tank is filled with water, but the exhaust also releases water, and yet it produces as much power as a petrol or electric engine. So now the question is, how is Toyota going to burn water in its engine? Have they found a good quality water source which is not found in the eyes of all these giant companies? Also, the current engines have a similar problem with water, like cats have a problem with water. If by any chance water gets into an engine or fuel tank, it becomes like this. The metal completely rots. So how will Toyota, the enemy of the engine, make water the biggest enemy of the engine? And Tesla, why don't we consider Tesla to be the trendsetter of the EV industry? But the truth is that Toyota launched the world's first successful hybrid electric car in 1997, and they brought EVs to the limelight before Tesla. So why leaving the EV trend? Does Toyota want to become the trendsetter of this water engine? Do they see something that Elon Musk's visionary eyes can't see? Well, if you understand Toyota's mindset, you'll get the answers to all these questions yourself. So without further ado, let's understand how Toyota is going to make its car industry a water-fueled industry. So look, friends, Toyota is a company that doesn't become a part of the distribution like other companies. Instead, it sets the trend itself, the trend that is followed by big companies. And that's why their major focus is on innovation, and only innovation. Because of this innovative approach, in the 1990s, the world was not even thinking about EVs. But Toyota launched the world's first hybrid electric car, the Toyota Prius, and set an EV trend in the same car market. In fact, some experts believe that if this car hadn't been so successful in the late 90s, then Tesla wouldn't have gotten that initial push in the early 2000s. Whatever may be the case, but somehow Toyota itself wasn't happy with its success. In fact, the US, which is home to Tesla, Ford, Chevrolet, Fiat, and other big car giants, is also considered a more reliable outsider than Toyota. In fact, this is also the reason why in America, 1 in 5 off-road vehicles are Toyotas. Now, when Toyota Prius was launched and it received positive and negative feedback from all over the world, they saw some concerning flaws in their hybrid electric engine, and they stopped the production of their EV. But what were those flaws that could not be fixed with minor modifications? Well, actually, I had multiple flaws. When Toyota studied its EV model Prius in detail, they found 2 major problems. First, EVs are used, they are also polluting the environment. And secondly, the batteries used in EVs are mostly made of lithium, cobalt, or nickel, like rare metals. And to extract these metals and make just one battery, so much fossil fuel is needed that almost 2 ordinary cars are made out of it. In fact, you may not know this, but an electric car has already released 13,608 kilos of CO2 before it reaches the showroom, which can kill 22,000 people every year. All in all, Toyota realized that EVs are being beaten for these flaws, and they are just wasting these rare materials for the sake of satisfaction. As a result, they took the development of EVs on the back foot and instead started focusing more on improving ordinary cars with combustion engines, starting with choice of fuel. Basically, from the very beginning, Toyota knew very well that what fuel you use more than the engine, that matters. Because how many of those bonds can break down and release trapped energy? And how many of those bonds can break down and form carbon pollutants? All these things are very important to take into consideration. Now, all of you science lovers must be aware of this. That molecule that can form the most bonds, what is that molecule? What is that element? Well, carbon, right? Right? Meaning, you can use ethanol, you can use kerosene, you can use CNG, and in some way or the other, carbon dioxide will be released. So, what should we do in this case? Well, there can be one idea. What if we use hydrogen, H2? Because a hydrogen molecule has 2 hydrogen atoms. And because hydrogen molecules are small, they can be packed very tightly in a fuel tank. Tightly packed. Let's say you can fill a fuel tank with 24 bonds of only 4 petrol molecules, but with a single bond of almost 100 hydrogen molecules, you ultimately have 4 extra bonds of energy. On top of that, hydrogen bonds are very strong, so when they break, they release 3 times more energy than petrol. And in return, you don't even get carbon dioxide. So all in all, it's a big win-win situation. In fact, Toyota's hydrogen engine and our detailed explanation video on it, both of these things already exist. But as I said in that video, that hydrogen-powered engine also has some problems. Hydrogen is a promising fuel and a highly inflammable gas. You are carrying a time bomb with you in a big tank. And if 100 hydrogen-powered vehicles get stuck in Mumbai's traffic, then they are not traffic, but ticking atom bombs. And that's why, initially, Toyota had to scrap the idea of a hydrogen-powered engine. But eventually, they returned to the drawing board once again. But this time, with a new mindset. Once again, but this time with a new mindset. In a fuel tank in a pure form, then it won't be inflammable, right? And this idea gave birth to the concept of a water engine. Now, friends, we will move ahead in the explanation, but let's realize this thing here. And this is personally one of the most important messages for all of you through this channel. See, we get stuck somewhere in life, like Toyota got stuck. So we should always fall back on first principles thinking. First principles thinking means identifying the problem from the root. Is otherwise, our mind gets stressed out during problems and looks for an escape route, and then we drop that idea. So now let's move ahead to the water engine concept. So no matter how clean the water is, if we look at it from the perspective of hydrogen, then technically it has an impurity of oxygen. This impurity will save it from explosiveness. Toyota had finally figured out what to make of it, except, again, a small problem. When they were doing a primary research in this direction, they saw that there are already people who have used water as a fuel to drive their cars. But that car never became mainstream due to politics and impractical designs. Actually, in the 1980s, to save themselves from rising fuel prices in the US, a small American inventor, Stanley Mears, designed a car that could run on water while looking for an alternative option to petrol: the world. And in 1998, when he was in a hotel talking to some investors about his invention, his throat started to dry up. He quickly ran out of the hotel, and before anyone could understand anything, he was seen running out of the hotel. And he was in a hurry to escape. 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 He was seen running out of the hotel, and before anyone could understand anything, he died on the spot. And you know what's even more shocking? A few days after his death, his car and all the other designs associated with it mysteriously disappeared from the mayor's garage. It is said that if those designs were still there today, then EVs would have never become mainstream. Because this is almost the same time when Toyota Prius was launched. So if this water engine car had gone mainstream, then Prius would have been the first and last EV that would have created a buzz in the mainstream media. Once this water engine was gone, many people around the world tried to make water engines, but they had no luck. Like in 2018, some engineering students from Nagpur, India, literally put water in a Maruti 800 was run on water. They had basically mixed calcium carbide pieces in the fuel tank of the Maruti 800, and they had run their car on a chemical reaction that was produced by the inflammable acetylene gas. And there are many other variants of water engines like this. But all of them had some fundamental problems. These were the 3 major problems. The first problem, as I said in the beginning, is that the combination of water and car fuel tanks is deadly. Because the oxygen in the water starts rotting as it comes into contact with the metal fuel tanks. And in just a few days, the condition of your car's fuel tank becomes like this. The second problem is that by dissolving calcium carbide in water, it forms not only acetylene gas, but also calcium oxide, which is deposited in the fuel tank and clogs it. And the third biggest problem was related to acetylene. Acetylene is more corrosive than water and more unstable than hydrogen gas. And on top of that, it's poisonous. So, all in all, we don't know how the mayor's engines used water, but the designs we know about today are very impractical. Now, why did Toyota take the risk of extracting hydrogen, especially knowing that hydrogen and water engines have their own problems? Well, here Toyota's engineers came up with a wonderful solution. They again went to their drawing boards. Then they looked at all the engines, i.e. EV, hydrogen engine, and impractical water engines. They put all of them on the board, and then brainstormed ideas and finally built an engine that could mix and match all the positive attributes of the cars to solve their own shortcomings. Let me explain this. Look, what happens in the fuel stations of hydrogen cars? They are like an extension of EV's charging stations. Instead of directly giving electricity to the car, they instead give electricity to the water. And then, through the electrolysis process, the water splits into hydrogen and oxygen. And lastly, this separated hydrogen is then filled in the tank of the vehicle. Now, as we discussed earlier, a hydrogen tank is equivalent to a bomb. So here Toyota thought, why not fit the entire fuel station setup of hydrogen directly in the vehicle? This will ensure that instead of inflammable hydrogen in the fuel tank, we can keep plain water. And then, for electrolysis, the vehicle has enough battery. For the analyses, the cars do have batteries. That's enough. And with all this, the hydrogen gas that is produced on the spot can be used to run the car without it exploding or the combustion engine getting damaged. And as far as the fuel tank getting damaged is concerned, because there is no mechanical movement in it, the internal surface of the fuel tank can be coated with a water-resistant material. So cool, right? You can see how Toyota chose their strong points from all the engines they had built before, and with their help, overcame their own flaws. In fact, this has been Toyota's DNA, its identity, because during World War II, Japan, which looked tiny like a peanut, was completely destroyed by advanced nations like the US. But then, as soon as World War II ended, while correcting their mistakes, Japan and its companies were nurtured by the US for many years. One of these companies was Toyota. Yes, Toyota. This company, which used to make hand looms at one time, was taught to make cars in the 1950s and was built by the US. Now, why am I telling you this backstory? Well, simply because when any country, any company, any person is at their lowest point, they ask themselves the main question. That where do they want to go from here? And how does he want to go? And why does he want to go? When in 1991, our country had only 3 weeks to survive, then we also asked the same question to ourselves. And look, today we are here. Now, in the 1950s, when the Japanese asked themselves this question, then they had 3 options. First, to become an agriculture-based economy like India and export food. Second, like Arabs. 3, help them in wars like Pakistan and get their monthly salary. Now, as you can see, the first option was not possible, because where will a country like Purple grow peanuts? There is no space for it. The second option was that Japan does not have enough natural resources like oil, coal, iron ore, copper. What will they export? And the third option was that their country had just now suffered the consequences of war. So going back to the US and going back there was simply suicide. So finally, Japan thought that if we don't have anything that is naturally valuable, then we will make such man-made things that other countries will call us to their countries and ask us to make them for them. That is, Japan has made its innovative mind that sellable, that marketable product. In fact, this is the reason why when we say that Toyota, or in general, Japan has made something new. Thanks for watching Cars Tech Services. Subscribe for more videos.